Hello and welcome back. This is a series on the hero and the dragon. We're studying primarily British poetry and British literature. And for this segment, we're going to be looking at Gawain and the Green Knight, as translated in our text by J.R.R. Tolkien, incorporated with Sir Gawain and the Green Knight and two other poems written by the same author, Pearl and Orfeo. The poem, Gawain and the Green Knight, is a medieval English romance. It's written in the Arthurian tradition, somewhere between the years of 1375 and 1400. And it's a manuscript which was copied then, and the original was destroyed, and the manuscript that we have is in the British Library. It's done by an anonymous author, and so we'll refer to the anonymous author as the Pearl poet, primarily because that's another one of his famous poems. Most people refer to him as the Pearl poet. This work was written sometime between 1375 and 1400, as I said. That was during the era of Henry IV and then Henry V, and the 100 Years' War was still going on during that time. And we have the War of the Roses that occurs in 1455. So if we're going to locate this work, it's somewhere in the 100 Years' War, before the War of the Roses, sometime during the era of Henry IV and Henry V. It is, it's called a romance because it's taken from the word the Roman work, and it's primarily based on Romance languages, that is, the languages that derived from Latin instead of the traditional language of the Latin world of the educated, which was Greek. And consequently, it's referred to as something that was written in the vulgar tongue, the tongue of the people, Latin originally. Only this work here was written in English. It was the vulgar tongue of English. But it's considered a romance because that style of writing in the vulgar tongue started to be associated with tales of chivalry and courtois and Arthurian tales especially. For our story, we have a work that is based on prior works like the Mabinogion and the works of Chrétien de Troyes and Perleval and the Morte Arthur. And this story combines elements of all those different things in order to make what really I consider to be a very powerful classic in English literature. It's written in long alliterative verse lines with the rhyme scheme of A-B, A-B-A. 101 stanzas all total. And it was republished in modern era in 1839, and that's the translation we have now by J.R.R. Tolkien is based on the 1839 republication of that original manuscript. This work then tells the story of a young man, Gawain, who is part of the court of Arthur, and he sets off on a journey basically in order to find a knight that's come into the court. And in the course of this journey, he experiences temptations and trials and meets up eventually with a dragon-like character who proves that he is essentially a chivalric young man. Let's pause right now and test your understanding so far. We're talking about the story of Sir Gawain and the Green Knight as translated here by J.R.R. Tolkien. Of this poem, Tolkien said the following: "The poet utterly transcends anything we know that could have served him as a source. Though an ancient tale of magic is the mainspring of his plot, magic concerns him not as a theme, but as a device. It is understanding of man, not the supernatural, that gives his poem its power." Part of what Tolkien is getting at here is that this poem, although it involves magic, it has Morgan Le Fay and it has magical creatures and the like in it, is not a poem about magic. It's really a poem about human nature and discovering who we are. The character, Gawain, is a character that is based upon prior heroes in Gaelic and English mythology. Characters like Cuchulainn, for instance, and other heroes. But he occupies a distinct role in this story, a role which Joseph Campbell describes as the solar hero. The solar hero is a hero who is related to the sun, related to the solar deity. He is a hero who is defined by the color red and by solar images like the sun, for instance, or other stars. He's a character who normally has reddish hair, and he does great deeds. But most important, as Campbell points out, is that he is a character that fulfills what Joseph Campbell called the monomyth. The monomyth, as Campbell held, was the single myth that is inside each one of us, and that each one of us have to enter into in life, where we make a journey out into the world. And it has, Campbell says, 17 stages to it. I'm going to reduce that 17 stages to 5 stages for our sake of our argument. The shortened form of the journey of the hero, or the monomyth, the solar hero for our sake, is that he begins as a naive, inexperienced character, somebody who is prompted to leave the familiar world by some means or another, either by necessity or because he's seeking something or because he just wants to go out and find his fortune. He goes out into the wide world, the unknown, and in the second stage he faces several different trials. The trials all seek to prevent him from finding his goal. In the third stage, he reaches the home or the castle of his adversary, normally somebody who actually is a solar deity himself. And this character is sometimes portrayed even as his own father. And the hero in this instance enters into the castle of his adversary, and he faces challenges there that almost kill him or almost wreck him. And after facing those challenges, he culminates in a final challenge that then he has to defeat. And by defeating that, he's transfigured, he's transformed. He has what's called an apotheosis, and we'll come back to that word in a minute. He's transfigured with a new knowledge of himself, and he returns home to grant a boon to his own people. And Campbell says this about this sun hero. A hero ventures forth from the world of common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Fabulous forces are there encountered, and a decisive victory is won. The hero comes back from this mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on his fellow man. So our character Gawain is a solar hero. We'll develop that as we go through the work. But we'll pause now to check your understanding. Joseph Campbell, who held that numerous myths from disparate times and regions all share fundamental structures and stages, called the journey of the hero a monomyth. And Campbell suggests that one of the major images in the monomyth is the sun hero. The sun hero is what we're looking at when we look at the story of Gawain. And the sun hero is a human who is then transfigured into a solar deity. He is lifted up. And whenever you have a character who is exalted or lifted up or raised up, the word for that is an apotheosis. It's from the Greek word apotheosis, and this is to deify. It is a glorification of the subject to a divine level. So the apotheosis of the character of the sun hero makes him into a sun deity. Gawain, we know, is a sun hero for several different reasons. One is because of the fact that he makes this journey, which is quintessential of the hero's journey, but also because of some of the elements, some of the natural symbolism that's associated with him. So, for instance, he rides on a horse that's covered in a cloth of red and gilded with gold, the color of the sun. He himself, it is said, is fair of face and a ruddy blonde hair. But the main thing that shows him to be the sun hero is actually, I think, his shield. The shield itself has on the outside of it, the side that faces his enemies, has a red field and a golden pentangle. And on the inside, the side that he would have seen constantly in battle, is the sign of the Virgin Mary. Let's look at the text. Then they brought him his blazon, that was a brilliant gules, with the pentangle depicted in pure hue of gold. By the baldric he caught it, and about his neck cast it. Right well and worthily it went with the knight. And why the pentangle is proper to that prince so noble, I intend now to tell you, though it may tarry my story. It is a sign that Solomon once set on a time to betoken truth, as it is entitled to do. For it is a figure that in it 5 points holdeth, and each line overlaps, and is linked with another, and every way it is endless. The English I hear everywhere name it the endless knot. So it suits well this knight, and has unsullied arms. Forever faithful in 5 points, and 5 times under each. Gawain was good, was acknowledged, and as gold refined, devoid of every vice, and with virtues adorned. So the text tells us that on the outside of the shield you have a field of gules, which is the heraldics word for red, and it has a golden pentangle on it. It's a continuous line that interlocks in the shape of a five-pointed star. 5, the number 5, was symbolically the symbol of man, and surrounded by this gold, almost like an aura or a halo, the image of a man inside of that pentangle would have been like man exalted, man glorified, man stretched out in a glorified position. But the text goes further when it says that this is man refined, like man exalted. The outer part of the shield shows a virtuous man, and it describes Gawain as being somebody who himself is purely virtuous. But on the inside, he has to reflect on the Virgin Mary to remind him constantly of what he needs to accomplish still. So though his outer image is of the sun hero, he's not yet the sun deity, because the outer chivalry or the outer perfection is not yet perfected on the inside as well. Once the two become one, he will be the sun deity. That's all the time we have for this section.